Those who voted Remain continue to postrationalise that it was a good choice. So they notice all the bad news about Brexit, and are less likely to notice anything positive. And it's the opposite for Leavers, considering how disastrous the Brexit negotiations have been so far. Not many people have changed their minds about voting Leave. Getty, if you are an ardent Remainer who has sat down with a Leave supporter hoping to change their mind, chances are the conversation will not have ended well. The avowedly Remain-aligned Financial Times admits that a change in public opinion looks unlikely, a position backed by multiple leading pollsters. Why, when Brexit is beginning to look like an increasingly risky enterprise, is that the case? We don't like changing our minds. In recent years, psychologists have uncovered two powerful forces that stop us changing our minds. Firstly, once we've made a decision, we tend to stick with it. This is known by psychologists as the commitment effect. This is why charities start by getting us to donate just a couple of pounds, and then persuade us to donate more. Because of this, we all tend to postrationalize our decisions. So if we've voted Remain, then we continue to postrationalize that it was a good choice. So we notice all the bad news about Brexit, and we're less likely to notice anything positive. And it's the opposite for Leavers. Doing this is easier than admitting we are wrong. The problem for Remainers is that every time you ask somebody to explain a decision, then they are forced to postrationalize it more, which deepens the strength of their beliefs. This is the underlying reason why polls on the Brexit referendum haven't moved. Us Remainers have, so far, failed to find a way to move past the 2016 arguments. It also explains why many experts think that Trump is on track to win re-election. Cabinet sackings, botched emergency responses, and unpresidential behavior are all overlooked. Double take Andy Grice and Brexit Central's Jonathan Esaby on Hammond vs. Johnson. Brexit tactics. The problem of commitment then interacts with the second problem. If you are more closely linked to your family and community, then it's harder to disagree with them. Stanford psychologists Hazel Rose Marcus and Alana Connor have hit on an explanation of the death stares between opposing camps. Alana Connor, who grew up in Memphis before attending Yale, recalled how exceptionally rude she found the debating style of this Ivy League institution. Given the disrespect in these discussions, she was surprised it had not erupted into violence. They point out that the more deeply linked you are to your community, the more likely you are to be polite and avoid conflict and debate. This split between rude and peaceful, or polite and violent, is, according to Connor and Marcus, rooted in two different approaches to life: interdependence and independence. Those who depend more on others tend to be poorer. After all, they rely on their family and community to get by. To avoid insults and violence, people use politeness. They found this split applied around the world. Tory MP Bernard Jenkins PM should walk away from Brexit negotiations if they fail to progress for more confident, economically secure people. There are less downsides to being rude in debate, such as the ones Connor witnessed when she arrived at Yale. Annoy your family and community, and it doesn't matter so much. Just think of MPs braying in Parliament or bluntly telling someone they are wrong. Yet this approach is exactly how we often go about changing people's minds. We use arguments that seem rude, and we unintentionally entrench other people's views. So what's the solution? Firstly, don't refight old arguments. You won't win them. In fact, you'll make things worse. 350 years ago, Blaise Pascal suggested that before discussing an area of disagreement, look for an area where you agree. A flourishing Britain, a growing economy, hard work rewarded with fair pay. It is on these common principles that minds are changed. EU hits back at Theresa May. Brexit negotiations are not a ball game. Then go on to discuss what challenges Britain faces. For instance, how do we make sure everyone has a good job? As you develop common ground, then you may find it easier to agree on common solutions. Many Leavers, for instance, are keen that Britain stays in the single market because it will save jobs. Secondly, be aware of your own style of communicating. Connor and Marcus suggest that you look for topics where you can use your feelings positively. While not everyone has a job, almost everyone will sympathize with a younger relative looking for a better job, education, or career. And millions of Britons have close relatives retired in the EU. And to be truly persuasive, consider that you too may be wrong. Paradoxically, being ready to change your mind is probably the best way to persuade somebody to agree with you. Ali Goldsworthy is a Sloan Fellow at Stanford University. Prior to this, she worked for Which as their head of supporter strategy and engagement and was a senior political advisor. She is also a director of the Joseph Rowntree Reform Trust. Rob Blackie is a digital strategy consultant. He was previously director of social at Ogilvy One and chief executive of Blue State Digital UK. He has worked as a senior advisor in Parliament and stood for election. More about Brexit: Remain campaign, leave campaign, reuse content. We use cookies to enhance your visit to our site and to bring you advertisements that might interest you. Read our privacy and cookie policies to find out more.